I'm Charlie Bright of Gold Derby, and today I am speaking with two of the people behind Netflix's Emmy juggernaut, Love, Death, and Robots, the creator of the show, Mr. Tim Miller, and the supervising director, Jennifer Yude Nelson. Tim, the first question I want to throw to you, what is the most challenging part of putting together each season of the show where there are so many different moving parts with so many different people?
Well, you kind of focused it in one area, but I would say the hardest part is choosing which stories we want to tell, because not because it's hard to find good ones, but because there's so many good ones. It's really hard to choose which ones are actually going to go in the show. And I have my favorites, and then Jen has her favorites, and then we arm wrestle. Sometimes she wins, sometimes I'm on the floor crying, and no. But really the show's joy to produce. It's not really difficult at all. We have really great partners, and they're all totally invested. They all kind of fight in a Thunderdome to get the episodes that they want to do, and it's really there's nothing difficult about it, I don't think, personally.
I'd agree with that. I do think that it's the might have been that is the hardest, because you have amazing talent, you have amazing directors and studios, and there just aren't enough stories or slots for everybody. So that's the hard part, because you just want everybody to be able to do something, and there just aren't enough stories.
And Jennifer, the next question I want to throw to you, and this is specifically about your role on the show. So you've directed a couple of episodes of the show, but you've been serving as the supervising director for the past two seasons for the entire series. And and just to clear up, what does a supervising director do for an entire series, rather than just as opposed to what a director will do for a single episode?
Well, I think a supervising director as a title is kind of ambiguous. I mean, many different people have different ways of addressing that role. In my particular case in this show, it's trying to make sure every single director and every single studio, they all have very different strengths and weaknesses, and trying to make sure that all the episodes are at a great level of quality. And that is very bespoke for each production. Some directors need more help in one spot or another spot, and I'm just there basically catching them as a big old safety net and helping them do their best work possible. And part of that's therapy, part of that's doing storyboards, part of it's just taking a lot of meetings, part of it's just telling Tim, it's okay, it'll be fine.
Jennifer does a lot of storyboards to help out the other directors, versus just giving vague notes. She can actually draw a sequence and say, what if you did it like this, or what if you do it like that? And she's got so much experience from all her time in the industry, both with story and directing and the visual side of things, that she can kind of be that Swiss Army knife to solve any particular problem. The other directors who, they come in with, you've got David Fincher with all his experience, and then you have people that are like Emily Dean, who's relatively new. And Jen's got a really generous attitude towards mentoring too, especially with David Fincher.
So the next question is for you, Tim. I'm curious as to when you first were coming up for the idea for what would become the show, which idea came first to you? Was it the subject area of, having it spanning the idea of love, death, and robots? Or was it the idea of doing a show that you would have standalone episodes, each with different writers and directors?
A lot of people think that the title Love, Death, and Robots means that literally we think of all the episodes have to be something about one of those three topics, but it really is meant to be a little tongue-in-cheek, and we try and cover a little bit of everything. But we definitely had the show first. We in fact, for I'd say a good half of our production first year, it was called UGA, which stands for Untitled Graphic Anthology, because we didn't have a title yet. I mean, it was originally heavy metal, and then we wanted to use Burning Chrome, which was William Gibson's famous story that I loved, but eventually we kind of landed on Love, Death, and Robots.
And Jennifer, it's what's really cool about the show is that not just with where you have different writers and directors for each episode, but you also have different animation styles with every episode. And I'm curious, is there an animation style that you would like to see done for an episode that hasn't already been done for one of the episodes of the show?
Well, one thing that's great about animation is I think that it's very much on the cutting edge of technology, because we are getting new tools all the time. And you see people that are able to do things now alone at home on their computers that you'd require an entire studio to do 10 years ago. And it will look better. It'll be way faster and be downright weird. And it's great. So you're having all this stuff happening so quickly. So I think the best thing about this show is it really gives people an opportunity to experiment dangerously and find ways of trying these new different tools that maybe people haven't seen before, because we want to be able to show things people haven't seen before. So I don't know what it is.
I just have one thing to add: sock puppets. That's all I'm going to say. Sock puppets.
We were talking about that at one point.
But Jen is right. I mean, for instance, you see, I know Jen and I have been trading links a lot lately, as every other artist in the industry. But you see a lot of the stuff like, Disco Diffusion and Mid Journey, all this AI assisted art, and some of it is just so mesmerizingly freaky but it's a technique that literally didn't exist 6 months ago, at least not in a way that we could access it. So, but immediately when I started to see what was coming out of that, I thought, oh, I know, we got a story that this will be great on. But it literally wasn't an option last year. So that's exciting.
And Tim, I'm curious as to, how do you go about, getting episodes for the show? Like, how do you go about getting the writing for the episodes? Like, what is the process of assembling what's going to be an episode of the show for each season?
You mean an episode or like the whole season?
Yeah, like how do you determine how do you get the episodes themselves? Do you just get do you send out a thing to writers, or
can you see this big shelf behind me here? It's full of books.
Yes, it looks like it was from a set of a Haunted Mansion movie.
It's cool though, isn't it? It's all books, and if you look stacked around me, is there's books and books and books. I read a lot, and I particularly love short fiction, and so I come across a lot of interesting stories, and whenever I do, I pull them aside and go, oh, I think this would make a good episode, or I think that would make a good episode. And luckily, I'm interested in a lot of things, and so a lot of different kinds of literature and so I think the stories are not all science fiction. They're not all love, death, and robots, but we have a big pool of stories to choose from. And like I said, then we just try and curate the right mix, like chefs in the kitchen. Jen and I are trying to make a meal where everything complements each other and gives something for everybody.
I'm curious as to how do you go about how does someone get to be a part of that kitchen, if you understand what I'm asking? I'm sure you have a baseline of people, but I'm sure you also want to bring in new people as the show goes on as well.
Well, the cool thing about it is we stay for the most part outside the traditional system, and almost all of our stories are existing short stories that have been published in various anthologies, and I've just stumbled across them. With the exception of Hibaro, The Witness, Blind Spot, and Night of the Mini Dead, they were all stories that I found in various books that I read for fun. And then we just go out and we option them. Those other ones are we knew Alberto. He came in and said, I want to do something he told us what it was, and we all said, it's amazing, let's go do it. But most of them are stories.
And Jennifer, I'm curious as to with this most recent season, was there any episode for this season that was more challenging to complete than the others were?
Well, they're all special children. They all have their things that were challenging about them. But I think in the case of, say, Very Pulse of the Machine, that one took the longest simply because you had a very, very small crew. You know, you had a big company on Polygon, but they put the crack team on it and they were trying to fit it in between projects. So that one took a long time. In the case of Hibaro, I think Alberto probably died a few times trying to get footage for all the nature shots and stuff, and got basically went wild man in the woods for a while, and we weren't sure if he'd come back, that kind of thing. But each one is, I think the reason why each one is challenging is that nothing of high quality is easy to do. So each of the directors in each of these projects had to push what they were doing to the edge of their ability. And I remember when Alberto was pitching the very first ideas for Hibaro, he said, I want to make an illuminated medieval painting come to life. And it's going to have horses and knights in armor and a golden woman made out of metal and jewelry. And it scares me to death. And it's terrifying. I don't know how I'm going to do it. And we're just sitting there and I'm thinking to myself, if you pitched that anywhere else, the executives would probably say no. But we were like, cool. It scares you to death. Great. You know?
They probably would, like you were saying, it's almost like therapy almost. They would probably refer him to, they would be like, are you okay?
Yeah, if a director comes in and tells you it's impossible and they're scared to death and they don't know if they're going to be able to do it, do you say yes? We did, so it's great.
Especially when your previous work, that your calling card is, you know, a woman half naked running through a city in a strip club, throwing dildos at her attacker. I mean, that's your calling card, and then you go, oh, medieval knights, siren, epic fantasy,
or as I call that kind of activity, Wednesday.
So would Alberto, I think.
I've interviewed him a couple times, so I'm familiar with that.
You know what I mean, right?
So and Tim and Jennifer, what I'm really curious, what I'm also, you know, since we're an award site, what's really been amazing to see with the show is how much it has really been just embraced by the animation branch at the Emmys from pretty much from the get-go, it feels like. What has it been like to see the reception this show has gotten overall, but also especially at the Emmys?
Oh, Tim cried.
I did. You know, I've been doing this for a while now, and when I first got into the industry, and Jen's the same way, we both thought what we really want to do is adult animation, but it seemed like such a distant dream because there was nothing really in the industry like that. Of course, you had anime in Japan, and some of the European animation companies were doing something edgy, but nothing where people did. They had the kind of money to do sort of high-end animation that you would get for a 4-quadrant movie. And so the fact that we're finally getting the support from Netflix to do, well, not finally from Netflix, they've been supportive from the get-go, but the fact that we're finally getting an opportunity to create animation like that, and that the industry recognizes that, and because I think that secretly they all have some of those dreams too, is really gratifying. I wasn't sure that I would see it in my career, you know, but the promised land has arrived for us.
It's something that's sort of across the board from all the directors and studios. They all said the same thing, that they wish that they could have done something that's really high quality adult animation that, you know, does not, you know, pull any punches, basically do everything that they'd wanted to do, but they were going to get in trouble for, they couldn't get backers for, and to finally be able to do it and then have people actually see it. And that's basically every one of these directors' dreams. So it's wonderful to see them so happy.
It's such an amazing feeling. It's like, it's to be able to give people presents that you know they're gonna love. You go, here's this story. It's fucking amazing. We want you to do it. It feels good to be able to hand out those toys at Christmas.
It kind of reminds me like what you're saying. I was doing an interview a couple months ago, and I can't remember who it was that said that he wishes that they wish that more people realize that animation is not a genre, it's a medium. And it feels like, like this show is like on the, like one of the things that's on the cutting edge of like trying to make people remember that.
Yeah, it can be anything. I mean, and it should be everything, because we can do that in live action. It's a little harder to do.
And also, I think most people in animation are much more messed up and darker people than they give them credit for. So just letting them out.
And for show business, that is saying something.
There's a lot of freaks.
Well,
we have a whole studio full of them, so I can say, having done movies and animation is it's the strange ones that go into this industry, which is what makes it great.
Well, Tim and Jennifer, thank you so much for joining us. We wish you all the best over this upcoming Emmy season. And to all of our viewers, please like this video, subscribe, and be sure to go to goldderby.com to make your predictions about this year's Emmys. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
it.